building. It's coming from the soul. Just can't stop. So fine when my spark gets hot, burning in my soul. Just can't stop. Ow. Now listen. Don't you let's kill me. Just can't stop. Let my spirit burn free. When my spark gets hot. Don't you let's kill me. No. Just can't stop. Let my spirit burn free. When my spark gets hot. Everybody say ow. Say ow. You feel the spirit, say ow. Just go fun. Come on here on the floor. Let's rock some more. I'm on fire. I'm on fire. Let the good times roll. Yeah. Lord have mercy. You know I feel all right. Feel pretty good, y'all. People get loose. Getting down on the roof. The flame is higher. It's higher. Man. Lord have mercy. I can't get enough. I want some more. I want some more.
Good morning, Sue, Julian, and Kelsey. Let's go ahead and test some microphones and your screen share and all that good stuff before everyone else gets on. Hey.
Morning.
Good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
Hopefully it's not too early over there.
Nah,
Not too
I've been
bad.
going since 7:30 with your guys' first thing, so
I need to get plugged in.
Okay, awesome. How's everything going?
Good.
Good.
How about you?
Good.
Good.
Yeah, it's Friday, so we made it.
I did have to laugh that letter showed up literally 10 minutes into your guys. So this letter came from the department, Kelsey, that I'll tell you about, like explaining like all of the things that the department's going to let us do. And literally it came like 10 minutes in. Angelica was like, wait, hang on, you guys. Like, this letter just came.
Yeah, and she's
That
gonna
was
have
crazy.
she's gonna have a few more updates because they
Yeah.
had some time to actually read it now.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I just met
Yeah.
with Diana and Alan and Em and Jackie and those guys. We meet every Friday morning about grant writing. So
mhm.
we printed it and looked at it too. And it was
Good.
just Alan and I were laughing because we're like, yeah, those guys were like, oh, hey, look at this.
Yes, exactly. All right, Jillian, you want to go ahead and try sharing your screen?
Yeah, sure. Hold on just
Okay.
a sec.
Just want to make sure it all works, and then we'll play music until I would say like 1:28, and then
Oh,
we'll
cool, I
get
can
back.
share specific
And
things.
so then is Maureen going to do her presentation first and then we'll come in? Right?
They said, Angelica said either way is fine. Julian, how do you feel? You want to stick around and listen to everything and then, or do you want to present after Maureen gives her update?
I would be okay with presenting first after Maureen, but I could also do otherwise.
Okay, so you would prefer going first and then Maureen, or Maureen and then you?
Hi. Oh, sorry. No, I'm okay, thanks. Yeah. I would prefer presenting first.
Okay, perfect. We'll go with that, okay?
Awesome.
Yeah, he still has school today, so I think he has to get home and get back onto some of his classes. So that'd probably be best, Julian. I agree.
Okay, perfect. I see your presentation. I do see the side staff. There we go. Perfect. Awesome, awesome. And were you able to make the edits that we recommended?
I sent them last night, but I have slow Wi-Fi, so I don't know if they got there in time.
Yeah, I don't know. I was knee deep in email, so.
No worries. But yeah, I got everything on your list.
Okay,
So
perfect.
Julian, this is presenting, like, I'm not getting the whole slide. So it just says Julian Durr 12. Yep. Yep.
There you go.
Oh, you know,
Yep,
hold on. Let me do
perfect.
this. Let me do this
Nope,
in.
that's perfect, actually.
Okay, let me do this in my presentation.
There you go.
program,
Yeah,
the
if you do it
actual-
on your, yeah, it'll show the whole screen if you present it.
It'll give me
Kelsey, your
presentation.
screen's a little high too. Yeah, perfect.
So I was just part of this communications training, and they said that we're supposed to show like this much of us. so
Yeah,
people
not a
can
chance.
see our. I was like, that's crazy. So if you only see half of my gestures, or you know.
I can't see if I'm not like I mean I should be wearing glasses. I don't, but
I have mine
can't.
right
I have to get close to see the screen.
Well, my sister and I were laughing about like us both having bifocals and like trying to do this, like lifting your glasses up so you can see. I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yes. My mom does the thing where she like puts them down on her nose and looks at you. And I'm like, what's the point of the glasses then? But you know, it's the nearsighted, farsighted thing. I was just like, what?
So
What are you
are
doing?
you gonna introduce Julian then, or yep.
Yeah, I believe Angelica's going to introduce him, but she might
Okay.
pass it over to you to do a short introduction. Okay. Okay.
So how about
Cool.
he's awesome. Here's Julian.
Exactly.
I'm
All right,
confused as to how to present in Pages. But I guess what I was doing was fine. I'll just
Yeah,
go
what
with
you had was fine.
okay.
Okay. So are we good, or you want to try it one more time?
Yeah, let me try it one more time. Just with it showing the whole slide here. Okay, this should be at least marginally better. Is it okay?
Yep.
Mhm. Yep.
Cool.
We can see it.
Okay, cool. Well, if we're good, I'm going to go ahead and mute myself and stop the video, and I'll just keep playing music as people come in. I don't want to give you stage fright or anything, but we are expecting about 1,000 people on this webinar because we had to combine all of the CDLs for pre-college together. So
It's okay, Julian, you won't see them, so just act like you're talking to us.
exactly.
And
Any of
they're all
Yeah,
our
please.
friends. I've been like shouting out to all my friends, like, hey, my student's gonna be on today. Like, yeah.
They're all
so,
here
Yeah.
supporting you. They're not
Yes.
judging you.
No,
Exactly.
I never had stage fright. That's my one stroke of luck in life.
Good for
There you
you. I still get stage fright.
Yeah, and Sue and Kelsey, if you want to be on, because I know it's hard to, you know, like you're talking to the screen and you feel like you're talking to yourself. If you want to be on while he's presenting so he can look at you, that's totally fine too.
Whatever Julian wants.
Yep, whatever you want, Julian.
Okay.
Okay. So
All
yeah,
right.
go ahead and just put both of us on then too.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. Okay.
All right. See you in a little bit.
Okay.
Oh.
So I'm not sure we're supposed to still be on. Oh, there we go. Yeah, let's play great music.
I do not know how to do any of these.
Kelsey, I'm not sure Kyle's gonna be able to log in on that link you sent. Yeah.
El amor no
he
se
won't.
acaba.
Because because he's not registered and he's a presenter, and that's a presenter. Let me see.
Y se queda en el alma. Por amor se perdona. Si es por esa persona, no hay errores que valgan. Contigo soy más fuerte porque a tu lado yo me aprendí a levantar. Puedes ver en mis ojos que nunca voy a dejarte. Con la mano en el pecho, mi amor, hoy mi corazón te quiere cantar. Con una y mil canciones tengo algo que preguntarte. Cásate conmigo, cásate conmigo. Después de tanto tiempo, si estamos juntos es el destino. Cásate conmigo, cásate conmigo. Si sol y la tormenta también serán parte del camino. Quiero estar contigo, por Dios te lo pido. Cásate conmigo. Cásate conmigo, me veo toda la vida contigo. Seré tu marido, amante y mejor amigo. Y de eso pongo a Dios de testigo. Siempre te hace en mi mente. Primera dama y yo soy el presidente. Pégate a mí, mi corazón no te miente. Dime que sí con un abrazo muy fuerte. Ay, siempre estás en mi mente. Primera dama, yo soy el presidente. Pégate a mí, mi corazón no te miente. Dime que sí con un abrazo muy fuerte. Cásate conmigo. Cásate conmigo. Después de tanto tiempo, si estamos juntos es el destino. Cásate conmigo. Cásate conmigo. Si sol y la tormenta también serán parte del camino. Quiero estar contigo, por Dios te lo pido. Cásate conmigo. Dímelo, Silvestre, compadre. Tú vas a ser el padrino de boda, este es el mayor. Que me voy a casar con la princesa más linda del mundo. Cásate conmigo. Ay, hombre. La industria es Nicky Jam. Dímelo, Silvestre. Contigo soy más fuerte porque a tu lado yo me aprendí a levantar. Puedes ver en mis ojos que nunca voy a dejarte. Con la mano en el pecho, mi amor, hoy mi corazón te quiere cantar. Con una y mil canciones tengo algo que preguntarte. Cásate conmigo, cásate conmigo. Después de tanto tiempo, si estamos juntos es el destino. Cásate conmigo, cásate conmigo. Si sol y la tormenta también serán parte del camino. Quiero estar contigo, por Dios te lo pido. Cásate conmigo.
Enrique Iglesias, gente de zona, decime.
Yo te miro y se me corta la respiración. Cuando tú me miras se me sube el corazón. Me palpita lento el corazón. Y en un silencio tu mirada dice mil palabras. La noche en la que te suplico que no salga el sol.
Bailando, bailando, tu cuerpo y el mío llenando el vacío, subiendo y bajando, bailando, bailando, ese fuego por dentro me está enloqueciendo, me va saturando.
Con tu física y tu química, también tu anatomía, la cerveza y el tequila y tu boca con la mía. Y ya no puedo más,
Ya no puedo más,
ya no puedo más.
ya no puedo más. Con esta melodía, tu color, tu fantasía, con tu filosofía, mi cabeza está vacía. Ya no puedo más,
Ya no puedo más,
ya no puedo más.
ya no puedo más. Yo quiero estar contigo, vivir contigo, bailar contigo, tener contigo Con tu física y tu química, también tu anatomía, la cerveza y el tequila y tu boca con la mía. Ya no puedo más,
Ya no puedo más,
ya no puedo más.
ya no puedo más. Con esta melodía, tu color, tu fantasía, con tu filosofía, mi cabeza está vacía. Ya no puedo más,
Ya no puedo más,
ya no puedo más.
ya no puedo más. Yo quiero estar contigo, vivir contigo, bailar contigo, tener contigo una noche loca. Ay, besar tu boca. Yo quiero estar contigo, vivir contigo, bailar contigo, tener contigo una noche loca. Con tremenda nota. Bailando amor, bailando amor, es que se me va el dolor. Very superstitious writings on the wall. Very superstitious letters about to fall. 13-month-old baby broke the looking glass. 7 years of bad luck.
Well, good morning, everyone. Well, good morning to some, good afternoon to others. This is Angelica Vilpando with the Council for Opportunity and Education. We are delighted that you are with us today. We are going to do things just a little bit differently. So we're going to do our effective practice first, and then we'll go on to the main part of our Connect, Discuss, Learn. Before I turn it over to Vanessa, a few housekeeping information for you all. We are recording this. We are going to try to get this out as soon as possible to people, but it could be as late as next week, but you'll get the recording and the materials, including not only this PowerPoint, but the letter from the Department of Ed as well. You probably, or hopefully you should have received that already. All right, again, this is being recorded, and there are going to be a lot of people on today, and so we will not be utilizing any time for you guys to talk out loud. We're really sorry about that, but if you have comments, please put them into the chat box. If you have questions, specific questions, please utilize the Q&A. Now, please do not ask Q&A questions until we get into the conversation, because a lot of times questions come in and then it's discussed within the presentation. Okay, so there will be times where you will be asked to submit questions. Do it at that time. All right, it's all yours, Vanessa.
Okay, well, I am super excited to be with all of you here today and to have our guests, Sue, Kelsey, and Julian, Today, they will be sharing some effective practices of sending their students to the National Student Leadership Congress in Washington, D.C., which is open to the pre-college program. So I'm going to hand it over to Sue to do a brief introduction of who Julian and Kelsey are, and then Julian will be presenting about his experiences. Sue?
Thank you, Vanessa. So I'm Sue Huizinga. I am the TRIO director at Shasta College in far Northern California, in Redding, California. And I sent 2 students virtually to the Student Leadership Conference this summer, the 2 of our Upward Bound students, and it was an amazing experience for them. And we were able to support them doing research about it over the course of the rest of the summer after the conference. So this is Kelsey Monahan. She is our Upward Bound Assistant Director. So she works specifically with Julian. This is Julian Durr. He is a senior at Central Valley High School in Shasta Lake, California, so just north of Redding. And he put together such an amazing presentation about his experience that I shared it with COE. And I just said, hey, I just thought I'd let you know that this is this great presentation that our students did. And then he also was able to present that to all of our Upward Bound students this summer as part of his research project. So they just asked us if Julian could share this with you all. So I appreciate you taking the time. It will be well worth it. And then, so Kelsey, did you have anything else you wanted to say about Julian or the presentation before he gets started?
I mean, Julian's an amazing student. Julian, I'd also maybe like it if you could just share the colleges that you applied to, because they're pretty big and amazing. So we're looking forward to hearing what colleges you get into and where you're going to attend next year.
So we'll go ahead and turn this over to Julian. He has a great slide deck to share with us too. So
Yeah, thanks so much, guys. Yeah, I'm really excited. So first, the support I have from Sue and Kelsey is amazing, and going to this summer program was one of those amazing experiences that they had to offer. Let me share my screen here. Okay, is this okay? Can everyone see this?
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, okay, so like Sue and Kelsey said, I'm a senior at Central Valley High School, a smaller school up outside of Redding and Shasta Lake, and Northern California. Sorry, this is national, not California. Yeah, so I had the opportunity to attend NSLC virtually. Don't want to get the acronym wrong. And it was great. Obviously, usually it would be in person, this event. So there were, I would imagine, some people would see it as a drawback that it could be online, but it was inevitably, it was great because I had the opportunity to go, whereas I might not have been able to go if it was in Washington, D.C. So there's a couple of things I'm going to talk about. This is a little bit of a chopped down version of the presentation that I did during the summer to my TRIO colleagues. I just want to give a little bit of an overview of this program and talk a little bit about my experiences without going too much into depth of each individual thing, and just talk more broadly about it. I'm open to any questions if anybody has any questions. I don't know what the procedure is on that, but I don't know how the Q&A works, but whether that needs to come at the end or whatever, I would be glad to answer them, but I don't see any chat or anything. So someone wave me down or whatever. Yeah, so let's go ahead. First, what is NSLC, right? So NSLC stands for National Student Leadership Congress, and across the country, a bunch of students come together and we work on a mock Congress. We meet real Congress members, and we're going to get all into that, but it is a across the country event, and there's a lot of TRIO students there. There's a lot of other educational support program people there, and yeah, very diverse. So to my understanding, and this is pulled from the website, but also pulled from kind of my own experiences there, you sort of get to live the life of a diplomat for a couple weeks, right? So, or for a week, right? So you work through problems in your mock Congress, but they're real problems, right? It's not some hypothetical. They'll pick real world issues that we're actually working on. You'll tour DC, obviously now virtually because of COVID. And yeah, so I think that you can read through some of the stuff on this slide, but this program really offers you an opportunity to peek into this world. And I think that a program like this, just like any other summer institute or event, if it's about math or about science, just because you're not necessarily interested directly in diplomacy or going into that field, I think it's an extraordinary experience. You know, I'm a music major. I'm going to go into music, but another thing I'm very interested in, and I think everybody should be interested in, is social change. But I think what myself and the other trio student that went, and the people that we presented this presentation to in trio, because she presented on this too, the other student that went, I think what a lot of people realized is that behind social change, the diplomacy is very complex, and government is very complex. And I think that what NSLC does, if I were going to summarize these 4 paragraphs in a more fun way, is it makes that diplomacy and what would you say, bureaucracy seem a little bit more palatable by explaining it in depth, by giving you a real life experience, but also by making it fun. So let's move on a little bit. To break down the days, there's always speakers. I wish I could talk about every single speaker individually like I did in my trio presentation. There's just not time. But there's a speaker every day, sometimes multiple speakers a day, and that's exactly what day 1 started with. There was a keynote speaker, and then we went into breakout rooms and had an introduction to our mock Congress, which I'll talk all about the mock Congress. And then on our second day, we got our virtual field trip of Washington, D.C., and then worked on our mock Congress again. And then on day 3, day 3, this one was awesome. A little bit of a step away from the Washington, D.C. and diplomacy, we had a selective college panel come in. So these were admissions directors and, educational advisors, teachers from very selective Ivy League, such type colleges, who came in and gave us advice on how to apply, came in and gave us advice on how to make yourself, stand out to these colleges. That was super awesome. I think that a lot of people there appreciated it. I know I sure did. Day 4 and 5, we had a Capitol Hill visit. That was awesome. And then a Zoom social hour. I missed that. And then of course we worked on our mock Congress. I think that was the last day. Yes. Okay. So on day 5, we actually presented our mock Congress bill and such, and then had a closing keynote speaker. That was awesome. I believe Calvin Wise, again, hear me breaking rules talking about them. He was a state representative in a southern state. So it was awesome to hear from someone in power. I don't know if I have time to show this video, but I'm sure this presentation will be somewhere, and I would definitely recommend just looking this video up on YouTube and checking it out. It does a good job of sort of talking about the same thing I just did, but with cameras and lights and stuff, right? But yeah, so that's the basic overview. I'm going to talk in depth about some of those specific things that I like, the mock Congress and my bill and my group, but that was the overview, right? It's this week of presenters from both legal officials and people on admission board of high up colleges, and virtual tours, and working in your groups and such. So I'll break this down. Okay, here was another thing. I did, after this event was over, go and talk with Justice Lopez. He's a great guy from COE, and he had a lot to say. We talked about the program. We talked about the prospects of whether it would be online or not next year. And we talked about the benefits of it being online. Again, this was a 25-minute interview. I already shrunk it down to 5 minutes, edited it down, but I will not play this right now. But again, if this presentation will be somewhere, I would recommend checking these things out. This guy, he's super awesome. He's one of the most charismatic characters I ever met. In his one-on-one Zoom call, he was still able to be ridiculously exciting. So I want to dig into some of these things individually that we did, and talk about what, at least not just what they are, but what they meant to me. So you got an overview, hopefully through my rambling, you can sort of understand what this program institute over the summer is. But one of the most important aspects of it is the group collaborations. We work in groups at our schools, we work in groups at our jobs, whatever. But this sort of work that we got to do during NSLC was special. It was multicultural. It was multi-state. It was, you know, it was national. So, and I don't think people realize how special that is, especially when you're working on a issue. And I'll talk a little bit more about the issue I got to work on. I don't want to spill that too fast, but what was fun is whether your issue was climate change or whatever that you had to sit down and create a bill about, you had people from states that had very different legislation than your state on those things already. It sort of hit people by surprise, like, oh, whoa, you think differently than me on this. How can we come together? Which again, the reality of working with people who have different views than you is a very, very vital and key, you know, point in democracy and the bureaucracy of social change, if that's what we're going for here. So I thought that was really special. Yeah, so I do want to talk a little bit less broadly about what my group did. There was the mock Congress, obviously, where you draft a piece of legislation, theoretically, and then whether it be judges or not, it could become a law, and you know, you put it up against other people's legislation, and you know what I mean. So yeah, like I said, this is vital for understanding our democratic process. A lot of people are really engaged in social change, but don't exactly understand all that goes behind it. So it's nice to have to take a step back from the emotions and the signs and the protest and go, okay, well, how do I put this on a piece of paper, you know? And then it just, you know, again, understanding of creating laws and our rules, right? So this is our bill. We had to talk about police misconduct, which was a very heavy topic at the time and still is right now. And it was very, very interesting to sit down and get to work on this issue with people who were in our group. There were people of color in our group. There were immigrants, and there was a boy who was an immigrant, and in our group there was people who had differing views. So it was really great to sit down with everybody and have a really intimate and honest conversation about this issue. You know, the goal of NSLC was not to be extraordinarily sensitive and tell us to go talk about how to do litter cleanup or something on the side of the road. It was about facing a real issue and sitting down and the potential for adversity in a group happening. But it went great. So you can see here, we drafted a bill that's just a text document, right? We talked about our rationale behind what the problem was, and then we talked about the different actions that we could take to face this problem, right? And the goal would be that this bill would then go be presented to Congress, right? Now, along with our bill, we created a slideshow, which obviously that makes it a lot easier to present than presenting a piece of text. Again, both these things are uploaded here. I'd love it if anyone would want to go check them out, especially if you're considering attending the program or sending a student to the program. You can see kind of the work we do here. I don't want to dig too much into this, but these were seriously awesome. They're no joke. We took it very seriously, and there's a lot of good details in there. So yeah, as I mentioned before, moving a little bit on from groups, hopefully, if you have any questions about any of these and you want to write them down or whatever, do that. But I'm going to move on from groups for a minute. The other aspect, like I mentioned before, was guest speakers. There were a lot of them, and they were all awesome. Again, I don't have the time to go over every one of them. In my TRIO program, I actually went through the guest speakers and talked about some of the things they presented about. But about all I'll say is, and this is one of the important things I actually talked about with Justice Lopez. I asked, like, dude, how do you pick your guest speakers, right? And there was no one answer, right? There's a lot of soul searching that COE NSLC does into finding these speakers. They're people that used to work with COE. These are people that have loose connections with COE. These are people that you know, maybe a COE director went to grad school with or whatever. So there's a lot of soul searching. It's not like they put out a Google form and they say, oh, whoever, like there's a lot of awesome people here with awesome backgrounds. And I think that when you're under 18 and haven't gone to college yet, being exposed to people who, oh, I went to school for 23 years is exciting. And especially exciting when they have quite a bit to show for it. So moving on from guest speakers, the other, one of the highlight parts of this was the congressional meeting. So for the congressional meeting, you meet with a congressman, you meet with someone who's in government. Now, I'm not exactly sure how NSLC does this on a year-to-year basis. when it's in person. I would imagine you'd go to Capitol Hill or whatever. But what was awesome here is that we got to all meet with, at least to my understanding, we all met with who was local to us in a way. So whether that meant the other student in our program went and met with our district representative, I got to meet with our senator, and some other people got to meet with their senators and their representatives respectively, right? And sometimes their aides or their, like right-hand man, whatever, maybe governors, I don't know. But yeah, so first, I don't need to talk about what Congress is here, but that was something that I talked about during my summer program. I want to talk about, don't need to talk about that. I want to talk about my meeting with Kamala Harris. This was super special. So I was invited on a call to go meet with Kamala Harris. That was the group I was assigned with. And it was really special because there was only one other student on the call who was a little bit shy. So I got to do a lot of talking with what would become in 2 months the vice president-elect of the United States. So she's awesome. She had a lot to say. And what was really special about this, politics aside, is that we were working on a bill, and whether I was talking with a Republican or Democrat wouldn't matter. At the time, we were working on a bill to address police brutality. And by the way, the question that we were presented with is police brutality ? Like is there police brutality? If there is, how do we handle it? If there isn't, how do we not handle it? Or how do we handle it, right? So it was an open-ended question. You could interpret it anyway. But what's special is that Kamala Harris at this time, one of the things we got to discuss on the phone call was that she was working on a bill exactly relevant to this. She was working on creating a national registry, or this was her proposition, that there be a national registry for any time a police officer commits a misconduct. So her proposition, again, was that if a police officer is engaging in some form of misconduct, that should be part of a national registry so that police officer couldn't go work at a different police station, or if they could, that other precinct would understand the implications of hiring that person or understand their record, right? That was broadly speaking one of the major parts of her bill. Obviously there's a lot more that goes into those things, but yeah, so she's awesome. It was great to be able to talk to someone who then you hear on the news is becoming the vice president months later. So super special. And those are the type of things that can happen. Again, the part of me saying this is not just to be like, oh, I did this, but this can happen. This can happen. And I'm sure it happens every year. So yeah, that's really it. I just wanted to go over those things. If anybody has any questions, I'm open to them. Again, this was super awesome. I have nothing but thanks for Kelsey and Sue and their undying support of me and sending me to this. I would recommend it wholeheartedly. And I think that it being online has a special touch. It's accessible. And I think that if I were going to say one thing to COE or NSLC as an organization, it would be offer an online option. If you're going to go back to in-person, I'd say still offer an online option. I think that socioeconomically it benefits those who would otherwise not be able to go. And I think that the online opportunity is not only comparable, but in the ways where it fails, maybe in other ways it is better. I mean, some of the guest speakers and stuff, what if they can't fly out here, right? There's opportunities for international guest speakers. So there's a lot of benefits to it being online. And yeah, that's pretty much it, guys.
Hey, Julian, will you share what schools you're applying to for next year?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a music major, and I'll be applying. I've already applied to the Juilliard School of Music in New York. I applied to Boston Conservatory in Massachusetts. I applied to New England Conservatory, also in Massachusetts. I applied to UCLA and University of Oregon, and yeah, just some music schools.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Julian and Kelsey and Sue, for helping organize all of this and bringing, him to our attention. We greatly appreciate you being part of the program and just everything that you have had to say about the program.
We did get one question, but this is going to be posed to probably Vanessa. What are the dates for National Student Leadership Congress this year?
Oh my goodness, those are the only things I did not write down. So let me bring it up. It is in June every single year. So let me bring that up, June.
And as she's pulling that up, Julian, you're just getting praises both in the chat box and in the Q&A. So thank you. The presentation was phenomenal. We really appreciated it.
And
Yeah,
thank you to all my trio friends for blowing my phone up here too, so.
great job, great job. Okay,
Um,
so if you want to send your students to this amazing program, the dates for this will be June 14th through the 18th of 2021. It will be virtual. And the student application is going to come out mid-January. So we'll be sending out some information on that. We do ask, that you start thinking about some students that you want to send. So that way, when the application comes out, it's easy to hand it off to them. Because there is going to be a March 1 deadline for that application. We also hire counselors as well during this process in order to help the students throughout the experience. And so if you are wanting to serve in a counselor capacity, please email myself, vanessa.ramirez@coenet.org with your resume and why you want to be part of this. So we will have that. Angelica, am I forgetting anything?
No, so you have a couple of questions coming in, and is it open for pre-college students? So can you talk a little bit about how the selection process works?
Yes, if I speak incorrectly, though, you or Maureen will have to tell me. But it's my understanding that this is for rising juniors and seniors. And so we do take students from every single region across the United States, including the territories. So that's where Julian was talking about it being very diverse. We're very intentional with that. And so we do encourage all programs all pre-college programs to submit some names for students to participate. Does that cover that question?
Yeah, so students do need to apply. The application process isn't that strenuous, but they will need to do a writing portion on that. We cap it out at 4 per institution. And I believe we do have an overall number too that we're going to cap it at. So, but I'm not sure at this moment. Are the counselor positions paid or unpaid?
So typically they are unpaid. And so I was a counselor 2 years for NSLC. And, I think that it's important for individuals to want to participate in the National Student Leadership Congress. Obviously, you could put it on your resume and all that good stuff. But I think that, if there is a stipend, that will be a nice little surprise at the end. But, I was highly encouraged to participate as a counselor by my director, Diana Villaseñor at the time. And, she attended, she loved it. She encouraged me to do it. I attended, I loved it. I returned, and so it's something that, once you partake in it, you see how the transformation in students, you see the impact on students, as you can see Julian, and the experiences that, he had. So it's definitely a rewarding position to take, but it's definitely something that you have to want to do because it is long hours. It's not something that you just show up, for 2 hours and then, okay, goodbye. You are dedicating some time to that. And you also go through training as well to make sure that you are ready mentally, emotionally, academically prepared for the experiences that are going to take place.
Well, thank you. A lot of people are asking really specific questions about pay, how much is it, all that kind of great stuff. We haven't opened it. It's going to open soon, probably in early in the new year. And that information will be found on our website with all the costs, how to register, all that kind of great stuff. So please be on the lookout for that. If you have specific questions, please reach out to Vanessa Ramirez, and she will put her email into the chat box. And again, thank you, Sue. Thank you, Julian. Thank you, Kelsey. We truly appreciate you being here with us in your morning and our afternoon. And I'm sure we'll be contacting you guys to do some more great things for us. We appreciate it. All right, we are going to come back to our Connect, Discuss, Learn. And I say 12th time is a charm. Let me see if I can pull this presentation up. All right, Maureen, do you see the presentation?
It is up, but I don't think it's in the right mode.
How about now?
Now it is.
Beautiful. All right, so let me remind people, thank you again for being here. This is the Connect, Discuss, Learn for December. Typically, we always have an effective practice that we highlight in our Connect, Discuss, Learns. Typically that comes at the end of the presentation, but Julian is in school and he had school coming up very soon. So we made the exception and he did phenomenal. So thank you for being here with us. I'm sorry that I didn't tell a little bit more about that in the beginning. Okay, so now we are turning it back over to the Connect, Discuss, Learn, and I'm going to turn it over to Maureen Hoyler.
Okay, so today many of you received a copy of the letter from Dr. McCarron from the Department of Education. We've tried to incorporate most of that letter in this presentation, and we'll move forward on this. You'll recall that over in May, the Council for Opportunity and Education Board recommended to the Department of Education that all programs, with the exception of student support services, have the opportunity to renegotiate their 2019-20 objectives because of COVID. The letter that came out from Dr. McCarron this morning provides a substitute for that recommendation, one that is easier in my mind for the department to administer. So rather than renegotiate everybody's objectives for 2019-20, what the department says indicates that they're going to do in 2019-20, and this only applies to talent search and EOC, is that they're going to take your 17-18, 18-19, and 19-20 prior experience scores. They're going to discard the lowest score. So they're going to, if you got 15 in 17-18 and 15 in 18-19 and 5 in 19-20 or 0 in 19-20 because you weren't able to meet 90% of your numbers, they're going to discard 19-20. They're going to take the 15 from 17-18, the 15 from 18-19, and they're going to divide it by 2 rather than 3. So you'll get 15 prior experience points. I'm going to go over that again. So they're going to take the top two years of 17-18, 18-19, and 19-20 for calculating your prior experience points. They did not make this blanket for Upward Bound Mass Science Veterans, Upward Bound McNair, but our expectation is as we move to further into the program year, that this approach will be utilized for those that are in competition in the upcoming year. The reason they wanted to get talent search and EOC done is to make sure that those of you that are competing for talent search and EOC we're not too concerned. We're somewhat calmed about that competition. So I'm going to take any questions people have about that, and then we'll move on to the next one.
Please put all questions into the Q&A box.
If you earned all your prior experience points for all 3, they'll still discard 1 and divide them by 2. So it's not a matter of, they're going to do it for everybody. They're not going to look individually. This prior experience is calculated by a contractor. It's not calculated by your program officer or anybody within the Department of Education.
Yeah, and remember, as Maureen indicated, it's the top 2 years. So even if you had prior experience points at all 3 years, they're gonna take the top 2 years of those years.
This,
And someone asked, will the maximum number of PE points be 10 instead of 15?
no, remember what I said. They're going to take 15 plus 15 or 12 plus 12 or whatever and divide it by 2 rather than 3. So the maximum points is still 30. I mean, it's still 15.
Did every program receive this letter?
Probably not. But if anybody needs a copy of the letter, we'll post it. I think we're posting it on our website. Is that correct, Angelica?
Yeah, we're gonna send it out in our weekly. We'll post it, but if you want it today, you can email me.
But we're going to mail it out over the weekend. So there's nothing in it that should keep you up over the weekend. So give her-
When can we expect to hear something about VUB and UB?
not until at least until after the talent search and EOC competitions.
So just to be clear, as of right now, UB and UBMS will still count all 3 years.
No, no, they haven't made a decision about UB and McNair and UB Mass Science. They will make a decision. They just haven't made it. So we don't know what's going to happen with Upward Bound Mass Science, and McNair and Veterans Upward Bound. It's very likely that they will follow the same precedent. They just wanted to get the talent search and EOC through clearance so that it would be well known while this competition is taking place. They didn't feel the same urgency with other programs that are not in competition.
Do we have to write and ask for the modification?
No, it is, remember, prior experience is calculated by a contractor. This is how the contractor is going to calculate your prior experience. So they're going to discard your lowest year, and then they're going to divide the remaining 2 years by 2.
How about the negotiated percentage for EOC? I'm not sure.
Okay, this is in lieu of,
Yeah.
It is in lieu of renegotiating your numbers and objectives. So they're not, I'm not saying there is no instance where they would not allow a renegotiation of objectives, but this is what they're doing across the board. They are discarding your lowest year, which for most would be 1920. And the reason that 1920 for most talent search and EOC would be low is because, as you'll recall, the regulations read that if you don't serve 90% of your numbers, you can't get any prior experience points for that year. So there are numerous, not all, talent search and EOC programs that did not make 90% of their numbers. So what this is doing is saying if you would have gotten a 0 for that year, it's irrelevant because we're not paying any attention to that year.
All right, so the other questions don't have to do with this.
Okay, so well, right now it
But real quick, it doesn't mean that we're not going to answer your questions. We're just going to go on, and then we will come back to and make sure that we at least try to hit all of these questions. And I want to say one more thing. I'm so sorry, Marie. Please put your questions in the chat or in the Q&A section. We're only looking at the Q&A for questions. Thank you.
Here is the scenario on the proposals. So you've got 2 layers of people in the Department of Education. You have civil servants and you have political appointees. when President Biden takes the oath of office, President-elect Biden takes the oath of office, some of the political appointees may be asked to continue, but most will not. That means that many key posts within the department will be empty. There won't be anybody in the post. The way the regulations work, they can't have somebody acting as assistant secretary or undersecretary who's been nominated for those positions. They can be a special assistant to the secretary or special. They can be in the department, but they can't do the work of the job they were nominated for. So there's an expectation that there will be delays. For that reason, the civil servants within the department really want to get these competitions announced before President-elect Biden is sworn in. They want to make sure that they're on the road to getting these competitions done. So my expectation is that they will both be announced, not that they'll both have a due date, but that they'll both be announced prior to the president-elect taking office. That is not certain, but that is my best guess, okay? With talent search being announced first. Now we only have, we have less than 2 months to get these announced. And so how that works out, I don't have a good guess about it. They are going through clearance. I think the department had hoped to get talent search out this month. I think it could still get it out this month with a due date in January. Again, that's still a guess. Dr. Burr Johnson is speaking to our board next week, and if we get any further news about what their expectations are, we'll make sure that that's made available to everybody. COE will offer separate proposal writing workshops for our institutional members as soon as these competitions are announced. They will be virtual, but I can't say this enough. 95% of what you have to write, what you have to write. Your proposals, particularly talent search, with the exception of the competitive preference priorities, should be close to being finished. Everybody should have a really good first draft. Everybody should have a really good logic model. And we're moving into a place where that's the case with EOC as well. The House of Representatives has given us a $10 million increase. The Senate is flat funded. If precedent rules and they get an appropriations bill negotiated, that would suggest we get a $10 million increase. That's not much money. It goes fast, a $10 million increase. If you assume no other program gets any increase, okay, no student sports services or McNair or Upward Bound, $10 million would probably mean that between them, Talent Search and EOC have about 40 new programs that are funded in an absolute sense, and then 40 programs are defunded and with 40 new programs. So 80 new programs between the two competitions with very, very high cutoff scores. Essentially, if you're writing for a new grant, you're writing to try to get a perfect score. I guess we should go back and see if there's any more questions.
Why don't you talk about the stipends?
Okay, let's do that.
And then let's do it.
Okay, one of the things that that the letter also clarifies is, you'll recall that the COE board requested of the department in May that Talent Search be allowed to provide stipends, that EOC be allowed to provide stipends, and that Upward Bound Math Science, and Veterans Upward Bound be allowed to provide higher stipends. So let's start with Talent Search. The department may consider, so that means you can ask for to provide stipends for participants that participate in summer activities during the 2021 year. So for next summer, you can offer a stipend in Talent Search. Okay. Upward Bound Math Science, and Veterans Upward Bound. Currently, the allowable stipend for participant regulations may not exceed $60 a month during the summer and $40 a month during the academic year. And students can get $300 per month if they participate in a work-study program. The allowable stipend for Veterans Upward Bound is still $40 a month. Due to COVID, the department will again entertain requests. You can request your program specialist to increase the stipend amount. You have to ask for a increase from your program specialist, and they have not given you an amount that you can ask for, but it must be reasonable. Maybe that's one of the things you can put into your into the chat is, what do you think is a reasonable request for an increase in stipends? And we'll try to monitor that in the chat. They also talked about computers. There's really nothing new in computers. So let's move on to questions, Angelica.
Okay, so I'm just going back to the top, okay?
Sure.
So it doesn't matter if you didn't meet your 2/3.
Yes.
Called out of compliance.
Okay, 2/3. The 2/3, 1/3 is not. It means you didn't serve eligible students. Okay, it doesn't mean that you didn't meet your numbers. It means you served ineligible students if you didn't make 2/3. Because if you, for every student who is both low income or first generation, I'm going to use these. I know there's language that's broader than about academic need, but for the way it reads is, for every student that is 2/3, you can admit that is doubly eligible, you can meet one who only meets one criteria. So if you served 100 students that only met one criteria, nobody was eligible. And all the money you spent was spent on ineligible students. So if you're in this situation where you have not met the 2/3, 1/3, would you email Angelica, and we'll see what we can advise you to do on that.
I'll put my email into the chat box. Okay. Can you talk about substantial progress for EOC? I don't know if they mean 1920. I don't know if they mean 2021. Okay,
so for 1920, the Department of Education said, we're only going to look at 1819. We're going to see if in 1819 you met substantial, you served 85% of the numbers of clients you were supposed to serve. They have not found that anybody did not make substantial progress in the 2019-2020 year. The criteria for substantial progress for the 2020-21 year are written on your GAN. It includes having a director, it includes serving 85%.
No,
it doesn't include the director.
No, it only includes the percentage of number funded to serve and the 2/3 criteria for EOC.
So it includes the 85%?
No, I think it's either 65 or 75. I don't know off the top of my head. It's
Okay.
lower. It's 75%, I believe. Yes, it's 75%.
Okay, so you have to serve 75% of the number of clients that you were funded to serve, and 2/3 of them have to be both low income and first generation. Okay, 75% of the number you were funded to serve. So if you were funded to serve 1,000, you have to serve 750. Of those 750, 2/3 have to be both low income and first generation. We understand that in the 2021 year, many of you are operating under the same conditions you were in 1920. And so it is possible that the department will make a different determination regarding substantial progress. But by moving the percentage down, they made some modification. And so when they moved the percentage down, which was in the summer, it was at a time when COVID cases were less in most parts of the country. So right now you got to be aiming for that 70%, but we'll certainly, COE will certainly be working with the department and the new administration as the weeks proceed. But don't expect this to be changed within the next 2 months, because this does require political clearance, and it will be a Biden administration decision, not a Trump administration decision.
Does COE have a recommendation about what would be reasonable and necessary dollars amount increase for upper bound?
That's why I asked what other people are thinking, because I think if we get a sense of the community, that will help us. Otherwise you're getting Jelly's opinion or my opinion, which is not worth very much. So let's see what the community gives us.
Also, we got this letter today, so we also need some time to think about it as well. But it would be wonderful if you give us what you're thinking of.
We will ask our board for input on this. Clearly, you're not going to say in upper bound you want to raise it to $600 a month. Okay, they're still looking for something that is
right. You're going to have to defend it. You're going to have to defend reasonableness in it. So somebody put $100 a month for academic year and $150 for summer. And then now they're coming in considering. So that's great. So look into the chat box for that. We are more concerned. We are more concerned with 2021 because, and they're just giving you their reason. They're restricted from entering any target schools, any info and guidance on this year's objectives.
This is for
talent search. So I'm thinking if it's for upward bound, I mean, it could be for upward bound too. I apologize. I don't know.
Okay, so if you're upward bound, I think you have.
Right, because it's 2021 is a PE year.
Okay, but when you break down the numbers for upward bound, okay, even if you're funded to serve 100 people and you assume that you lost a considerable more people than you would have last year, we're talking about 25 or 30 students. Okay, so think about how you can get those students. When you break it down and say, I got to keep the people I got and get 25 or 30 people, how many can your current students recommend? I said this in an earlier, long ago CDL. Think about hiring as a consultant one or more of the counselors in your target school to reach out to students and encourage them to apply for upward bound. Think of some creative ways to get your numbers up. At this point in time, plan on meeting your numbers in upward bound. In talent search, because you'll be in the first year, I always have to go through this, right? Jelly?
Talent search for next year or this year?
For 2021.
That's this year, right now. They're in their 5th year. So
for 2021, you don't need to meet your objectives because they don't consider the 5th year EOC and talent search. You don't need to meet your objectives because they don't consider the 5th year's objectives in awarding prior experience points. I have to stand up because my lights turn off when I don't move enough. So, okay.
I don't know what program this is. So if you guys, when you do write your questions, please state what program you are. But this one says if you did not meet your 90% numbers last year and you won't meet your numbers
Okay,
this
let's stop. If you
but-
didn't meet your 90% numbers last year, it doesn't mean anything because they looked, okay.
Who are we talking about, Maureen?
Okay, so if you didn't meet your 90% numbers last year and your talent search or EOC, it will be a year that is most likely thrown out because it will be one of the 3, it will be the year that has the lowest prior experience. Okay, so they will take 2017, 18, 2018, 19, add those points together and divide by 2. They won't even look at 2018, 19. With respect to upward bound math science, we have to wait for at least a couple months. My expectation is that they will utilize the same approach, but we don't have that. That decision has not been made by the department at this time.
You want to go into it if it's, oh yeah, you just did an upper bound, I'm sorry. Okay, upper bound director here. Many of our 1920 seniors took a gap year. I understand we haven't received notification of how UB will be judged on our APR, but I'm wondering if COE has any plans to push back against the narrow window of what counts as students successfully enrolling in college. I have several seniors this grant cycle that took gap years because of family deaths, once in a lifetime chances to travel, etc., who went on to successfully enroll in college the next year.
Well, understand if they do the same thing with upward bound as they did with talent search, they'll be able to throw away 2018-19, throw it out. So again, we can't.
But Maureen, so, and tell me if I'm wrong, because I am a little dumb on APR. If the student doesn't go into college, you cannot count them.
They don't
But
count. For
But
prior-
they won't count, but it doesn't, but for that next year, so it doesn't matter anyway. Okay.
Right.
Do you think they will add the quality of project design section to talent search grant again this year?
I think everybody's going to need a logic model, which is what the quality of how it's included, whether it's included in the evaluation section or as a separate section, I don't know.
Okay. For existing programs who are rewriting, will we be afforded an opportunity to reduce the base number of participants historically proposed to serve without an award amount decreasing?
No. It's very unlikely. They may, after the effect, remember you're writing for 5 years. They may, just like they did in EOC this year, reduce the substantial progress number so that the first year you don't have to make 80, well, in talent search it's not 85% anyway.
Yeah, 75 now, yeah, for their remaining.
So they
I
may
think the
reduce
first year was
that number,
65.
but they won't allow you to, for the 5 years, again, this is my opinion, to reduce the number that you project to be served.
Is Chris McCarron a civil servant or a political appointee?
Political appointee. He may, one of the things that happens at the end of administrations is that a number of political appointees qualify as civil servants. So we may find a change in his status before the inauguration. I'm not saying that is going to happen, but it may happen.
For talent search, and then I'm going to add EOC too. Is there any conversation about being able to do a no cost extension, not carry forward any funding past the end of the grant cycle?
We're not talking about anything past tomorrow. Certainly nothing past the, I should know the date, the date of the
August
inauguration.
31st.
Nobody is talking about anything so fast then.
So spend your money.
So spend your money.
The money.
That's right. You've
Are
got
you-
the ability to write, to give stipends. You've got the ability to increase stipends. figure out how to spend your money. Don't not spend your money. Your students and their families need money. You need to connect with them and figure out ways to entice them to connect to you. So utilize money to do that. Don't be planning on no cost extensions.
Are EOCs still required to meet 90% of their fiscal year 2021? So what they're in now?
2021 does not count towards prior experience. So they don't look at 2021. You're not, both for talent search and EOC, prior experience is irrelevant. The 90% number is irrelevant because the 90% number is related to prior experience.
What criteria are we using to determine what the increased amount should be? I guess they're an upward bound program or an upward bound math science that have already stipends.
I think you have to make a reasonable argument. It's reasonable for us to raise the stipend to X. What are the reasons that it would be reasonable to do that? What are the needs that students are having during COVID that they didn't have prior to COVID? What are the issues you are having with respect to encouraging participation that you didn't have prior to COVID? How can a $50 or $100 increase in the stipend help you meet that need? So you need to figure out why it is you're proposing an increase in a stipend, and then get a number that you think will be sufficient for you to do it. So again, I'm making this up. So, less than $3 will buy me a cup of coffee. You've lost in talent search, you're funded to serve 500 students. You had 450, but right now you can't connect with 70 of those students. What would it take for you to connect with 50 of them? If you offered them $100 to participate in a 1-week summer program that helps them get their credit for a course they didn't get credit for, that helps, whatever it is, that's the argument that you want to make. You want to figure out, you don't just want to say we're going to increase stipends by X. You want to connect it to the students receiving a very necessary service.
Sorry, hold on. As someone who's new to doing a talent search proposal, we were encouraged to contact someone with Ed to request a sample funded proposal under the Freedom of Information Act. Who should we contact?
Call your neighbors, call your regional president, call your state president. Don't try to get it out of the Department of Education.
Okay, I think we should go on.
Okay, good. Okay. So, as you know, we're in a transition period. COE has reached out and the transition team has reached back to us. These are the priorities that we're sharing with the transition team, discussing with the transition team. And I just wanted to make sure that you were all aware of them. The first is linking growth in the Pell Grant funding to growth in federal TRIO programs. The Democratic platform reads double the maximum on page 64. So you know it's not a short platform. Double the maximum Pell Grant award for low-income students and double federal support for TRIO programs that help first-generation college students, students with disabilities, veterans, and other underrepresented groups apply to incomplete college. So we're arguing strongly, and this is really crucial, that that funding for TRIO and funding for Pell be considered in the same bucket. That if you're going to increase the maximum Pell award by 10%, you should increase TRIO funding by 10%. So this is this is huge this is huge. Okay, next slide, please. Focusing on college completion, many of you are aware that with respect to college access, getting low-income first-generation students into college, the nation's made significant progress in the last several decades. The problem is that even though those students get into college, and all of you in Talent Search and Upward Bound, EOC know this, doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to graduate from college, or certainly that they're going to get a baccalaureate. So there's two reasons for this. There's more than two reasons, but two reasons that are really obvious. The first is that low-income students are concentrated in the least resourced institutions. You could send all of your Upward Bound and Talent Search graduates to Harvard, they probably, 85% of them would probably get a degree, but you can't because you're sending many of them to under-resourced institutions, and many under-resourced institutions are not able to provide support services for the students that need those support services. So getting support services for the students you work with once they do enter college is crucial, both to your achieving your objectives and the nation achieving its goal of equalizing opportunity in making college a real path to mobility that it once was. Next slide, please. Our third priority is reconnecting low-income and first-generation students and adults to the college pipeline. And this is what you are so good at doing. You're providing the personal support, the outreach, the face-to-face contact, even when it's standing on the sidewalk and the student isn't on their porch, to encourage them to say that, you know, COVID is tough and we know how tough it is, but that it is very possible for them to get back on track to reach their educational goals. That's why Talent Search and Upward Bound and EOCs are more critical today than they've been at any time in my long career. Next slide, please. We're also recommending that the regulation, this is not legislative, the regulation that requires students to be citizens or in the country for other than a temporary purpose be eliminated, so that TRIO program can serve DACA students as well as other students who may not have DACA status but may be in the country without legal status. We also are hoping that that regulatory negotiated rulemaking session will allow us to make some corrections in the need sections of the Talent Search, the Upward Bound, the Student Support Services questions that discriminate against certain, that in COE's view, discriminate against certain categories of institutions. Next slide, please. Ensuring that student debt relief first targets low-income students and alumni, as well as non-completers, as well as educators working with these students. Most debt, the highest amount of debt, is incurred by middle-income students, or maybe even upper middle-income students who go to high-cost institutions. But the equivalent of $40,000 or $50,000 debt to one of those families, maybe $2,000 to one of our families. And so we're really encouraging the administration, the Biden-Harris administration, to focus on low-income students and the educators working with them when they put forward a debt relief plan. Next slide, please. We have two basic things that we're asking, that we're saying that why it would be good to do what we're asking them to do. The first is that the Biden-Harris team is going to need moderates to get their agenda across the finish line And TRIO has a lot of support from Republicans, from moderates. Next slide, please. The second reason is, as many of you saw the,
Sorry.
that's all right, Betty, you can leave it here. Many
That's
of you
okay.
saw the short video clip of President-elect Biden speaking about what it meant to be a first-generation student. And they are a family that knows what it means to be first generation. His wife works with low-income first-generation students on a daily basis. They understand what these students need. And that's another reason that they should be supporting TRIO, this administration. Next slide, please. This is kind of a sidebar here. On Tuesday, COE and the Pell Institute sponsored its first symposium on re-envisioning research on college access and success. We had over 75 TRIO alums who were currently faculty at colleges and universities. So this is going to be helping us conceptualize research on our program so that we're the ones that speak to the kind of research that should be done on college access and success. It's kind of the same principle that our forebears 40 years ago said, we're the best proxies for our students. We're the ones who should be talking to Congress and the Department of Education about what they need. So if any of you on your campus know of a faculty member who was in one of the TRIO programs, please send me their contact information. If you have any of your graduates that are currently faculty, please send them to me. I think this has the potential of really assisting our students. So Angelica, I'm going to turn it back to you. If we have any more questions, we can take those. Otherwise, we will.
Yeah. Can we purchase food for our UB students? We have money in our budget, but it have not gotten approval yet.
You don't need approval, right? The COVID. Okay. Yeah, no, you don't need approval. I'm assuming that you're talking about them participating in activity that would have been face-to-face and is now virtual. Is that, if that is what you're
That's what they have to be talking about, is what you're saying.
right?
Yes.
And we in the frequently asked questions provided that authority to do that. We would have said, COE would have said you didn't need that, the frequently asked questions, because the regulations say that you can buy food. So there's the only clarifying thing in so the regulations itself says you can buy food to have students participate. Both Talent Search and Upward Bound, the regulations say this. Again, if you need a citation on where it says it, we just email Angelica so she can have another one of her 720 emails to answer tonight.
Can we continue with food for our Saturday events? You just did. Did you get an answer on how to deal with the GPA with the pass fail due to COVID?
Okay, so that's going to be, again, in the questions of how they're going to deal with the APR for Upward Bound, which is not answered yet. And we do not expect it to be answered in the next couple months. So the question is, what do you say? And I should know this. The question is, how many students? Is it the satisfactory academic progress question? Is that but how it relates to the APR, I am blanking on. So if somebody can clarify that in the question and answers, that would be helpful.
So just one thing, APRs are going on as scheduled. They are not going to change anything in these APRs for anything. They may drop, as they're doing one, they may drop a whole APR. They might drop an objective later on. But right now, when you submit your annual performance report, it is as it's stated in that report. Nothing that they have come out and said now is going to change what you are going to report on your annual performance reports. Does that make sense? Are we required to receive prior approval to purchase additional computers, laptops, hotspots for student use?
No. It's allowable in the regulations.
And Maureen, can you do the same thing you did on the college one about emailing us?
Oh, yes, if any of your program specialists have either refused the permission to do this or not approved a budget that you had computers or hotspots, and if you would email Angelica so we can raise this with the senior people at the department.
We need it in writing, please.
Yeah, not something that somebody's told you over the phone, something that somebody has written in an email.
So Talent Search has never done stipends before. If given approval for summer activity stipend, can we provide virtual meal supplements in addition to the stipend?
I would just stick it all in the stipend. You know, why make life difficult if you can make it simple? The language on stipends for Talent Search is limited. I mean, not for stipends, for food is limited. So say, look, I'm going to have a summer program. It's going to be 3 hours a day. It's going to include lunch. Therefore, I want to have a stipend of $125 or whatever. In your mind, put some of that towards the food. I would not, you know, I try to make things as simple as I can when I'm dealing with the department.
Hold on 1 second. There's no mention of standardized tests on the letter for Upward Bound. They are not.
There's
offered.
nothing about Upward Bound in the letter. Understand that. There's nothing about Upward Bound. It doesn't speak to prior experience for Upward Bound. That's an open question. It has not been considered. It's not to say that everybody knows that nobody took a standardized test last year. So they're going to have to deal with it. But they said you gotta put yourself a little bit in the place of a civil servant in the department. Just think about it for a minute. You've got these things that you want to get done. You've got Trump appointees who may not be supportive of TRIO. Some of them are very supportive of TRIO. So I don't want to give you a blanket. That's some of the people in the department that are other civil service that have clearance authority. So what did the civil servants in the Division of Student Service say? They said, let's prioritize solving this for Talent Search and EOC so that no Talent Search or EOC program is disadvantaged in these upcoming competitions by the prior experience regs. We will deal with Upward Bound just like we dealt with Talent Search and EOC, but we're trying to get this through this clearance process as fast as we can, knowing that we're up against this deadline. So if you're in Upward Bound or Upward Bound Math Science or McNair, you just have to wait. It's not to say that COE or the department cares any less about you. It's just that the answer to those questions doesn't really hit the fan until next year. While for Talent Search and EOC, it hits the fan this spring.
I understand. I think this is more of a statement. They are asking you a question, but I understand that all programs are struggling for recruitment. For veterans, veterans are found individually, not in groups. It's extremely difficult to outreach from home. My team is getting very creative with outreach, but it's still not bringing in enough participants. Does the department understand?
Yes, they do understand. Just take what I just said. They classify in their mind Talent Search and EOC and Veterans Upward Bound together because they are high touch outreach programs with high numbers. But Talent Search and EOC got the priority, not because they have a different set of experience than Veterans Upward Bound, but because their competition is this year. So do as much as you can to get as high in numbers as you can for 2021, but understand that sometime in the next several months, the department will respond to the needs of Upward Bound, Veterans Upward Bound Math Science.
All right, I know that there are still some unanswered questions, but we are out of time. If you haven't gotten your questions answered, please email Angelica at angelica.vilpando@coenet.org. We thank you for joining us today. Our next, wanted to let you know that we will be having Connect, Discuss, Learns in February, and then we will again in April. We have the February ones will be up on our website by the end of this year. I've also included a couple of other webinars that will be, and a training that will be happening within the next couple of months for you to take a look at. Also, we have a lot of things on our website. We're trying to get it updated as soon as possible that you can register for. Some are free, some are paid for. We thank you for being with us today, and we look forward to seeing you at a training, in our online class, or at our next webinars. This concludes our webinar for today. Have a good afternoon.